Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the AOR Hyper Energy Season 4 Formula 2 Sprint League here on the PC. We're here at Monaco without the barriers. We're at the Hungaroring for the 8th round of the Hungarian Grand Prix. We'll jump straight down to qualifying and down on board with Tudor, who's currently coming through the first of 14 corners. There's 6 to the left and then 8 to the right. He's coming down to the second left-hander and the third corner. Then he'll come through the right-hander of turn number 4. It's taken almost flat out in the dry, you could say. Quite tricky corner to take sometimes, and you're just squeezing the car round to the edge of the track, trying not to go too wide. Then it's through the tricky turn number 5, trying to get on the throttle as early as possible, but trying to hold it as much as possible. Then you come through the chicane of 6 and 7 before going flat out once again, coming down into 8 and 9. And then down to 10, that tricky air section where you can both lose and gain large amounts of time, but where you just have to sit behind another car. So frustrating in the race come that time. Then into sector number 3 in the last couple of corners. That was turn number 12. Then into turn number 13. That's just a 180 corner before coming up to what is also about a 180 corner of turn number 14. Before coming up to the second DRS zone on the start-finish straight, and then across the line, Flash goes to take pole position with a 124.447, with Tudor going in second place.
Asher and Steph. Darius also very near Steph's time, and then Neil Bywater, who I don't think has managed a representative lap time, 5.2 seconds down on Flash.
Yeah, quite far down there. It might have seemed like he would have had a wobble somewhere or had quite a big lock-up. It's very easy to do in many of the places, especially through a corner like turn number 5, as we're coming into the race now, and it is chugging it down, coming in here to the feature race, and it looks like the drivers will be having to do all 19 laps in those conditions. Because,
well, yeah, it certainly looks like it at the moment, at least. This is a lot of rain coming down, and this water will be sufficient to remain on the track for quite a while. Of course, given that this looks like it's heavy rain conditions, there'll be a sort of transition to light rain before it goes completely dry as well. It can be quite a brief transition, so it's still possible we'll see dry racing towards the end of the race, but I think I agree with you. It's more likely this whole feature race will be in wet or at least damp conditions.
Yeah, and you have to remember, here in F2, the drivers, they don't have a intermediate tyre. They only have what you'd normally say is the full wets. So it's the transition from one tyre to the other comes quite a bit later than you'd see in F1, because they have to go from completely wet to completely slick tyres. And when the rain is coming down like this, it first has to stop and then it has to go off the track before they can come on to a slick tyre. So with the sky looking like it is and the rain falling like it is, it's looking unlikely to see the slick tyre in use.
Indeed, yeah, it seems like that will be the case, as the drivers now will be forced onto the grid to start the formation lap here, having tweaked their setups pretty significantly, I would imagine, for these wet conditions, or as much as they are possibly able to, maybe fiddling with fuel loads and such as well. There's just going to be only 9 drivers on the grid today, sadly, not a very full grid, and it means that only one driver is going to miss out on being on that reverse grid, so whoever comes 9th is going to be feeling very envious of the person who comes 8th, and pretty much the whole rest of the field as well, but it does mean everyone will score points in the feature race at least, so that's a nice one for them, I guess.
Yes, very much. It's in these conditions, everyone will be trying to survive, and with the prospect of getting points no matter what, that's looking even more like something all the drivers want to do, and it might then be that we'll see a bit less action, but I'm sure that at least 9th place will be trying to challenge as much as possible, because they're now with a golden opportunity of taking that reverse grid pole, because they don't have to worry about anyone coming from behind. Normally, when you're in that battle for 8th place, you're sometimes worrying going for a big move because someone might be right behind you also wanting that 8th place, but you don't have to worry about that today.
Indeed not, and just looking at the field of drivers right now, we've got 3 of our top 5 in the championship, really the only people who are sort of even vaguely in with a shout at the top of the championship. Flash, our current leader, who's leading by quite a way at the moment. Richie B, who I believe is second in the championship, is, as you know, he's pretty comfortably second, actually, I think. He is not here today, so he will not be closing down the gap to Flash, and that's good news for the German, I suppose, to an extent. I think third in the championship is Tudor, who is here. Fourth, Pino Macri, who was sort of a bit of a championship favourite at the beginning of the season. He is not here, as he wasn't there in Britain either. And then Sebster, who's 5th in the championship, is here and has managed to qualify 4th.
Yep, certainly. Many of these drivers now able to pull a gap, especially Flash. He will really be hoping for a good result. And it's these chances that he needs to grab if he wants to want to win the championship. It's the chance like this to take many points on your rivals that he needs to grab.
All right, then here come the lights. It's going to be a very tough getaway for these drivers in these wet conditions. The hold is extended for them, and now we are underway. Looks like a good start towards the back there. I think that's Darius getting off the line well, but speaking of getting off the line well, Flash has managed it with ease up at the front. Dominic and Tudor thinking about side-by-side here, but Tudor had a slightly slow getaway, still trying to keep his nose up the inside of his teammate through turn 1 they go. And it looks like Dominic actually has the better of his Romanian teammate. Further back, Haspen and Sebster are battling. Haspen up 1 position if he can continue to remain ahead of the Arden of Sebster. And he does so, the pink car having to slot in behind in 5th. There's Darius, who had the good start off the line, and he's looking to make it 3 positions gained at the start as he makes contact with the rear of Sebster there, almost spinning out the Arden. And as a result, Sebster's lost 2 more positions. So Sebster, who had a good opportunity to try and make some ground on Richie B and Macri in the championship, are having a really poor opening lap here.
Yeah, you must say. And Sebster, they're falling 2 positions on that small contact. And it's Tudor now on Dominic there. Tudor on the outside, taking back the position that he lost on the start through that very tricky chicane where it's very easy, especially in these conditions, just to get a bit too eager on the throttle. You want to be as quick on the exit as possible, as you want to come into these S's, or that very tricky section of the track. You want to get in there with as much speed as possible, and that small chicane is hindering you in that, as Darius there coming into the 180 corners at the end is trying to go round the outside of Haspen. He's at least forced round the outside by Haspen, but gets the inside line for the final corner and takes that position up into 4th place he goes. So nice start from Darius on the first lap here.
Yeah, monster opening lap from Darius, who's doing a great job. This is not something we've seen from Darius very much thus far this season, so maybe the wet conditions really favouring him at this stage of the race in the second of the two ARTs. It's currently a big old Prema sandwich at the top, with the ARTs being the bread. Flash from Tudor, then Dominic and Darius. Tudor, interestingly, making the move on Dominic last time around into the chicane. They went side by side and somehow managed to avoid contact, which was very impressive. Sebster trying to recover after his poor opening lap, but can't make his way past Lasher quite yet. However, the Dams has a big moment on the exit of turn 3. Up towards turn 4 they go, and he's well wide there. Armfuls of understeer and then oversteer to boot, and Lasher loses out both to Sebster and then to Steph Farrell as well.
Yeah, so now the two Dams drivers there at the back, not having the starts of the Grand Prix that they wanted. Lasher there on the exit of turn number 3, he just got a major tank slapper and then made a bit of contact with Sebster coming up the hill. It doesn't look like he gained any damage from it, but still his tyres must be quite overheating at the moment, as now Lasher making his way past Steph Farrell. Steph there, he must have had a spin or something. Yellow flags deployed for a second there as he falls down to 9th place, getting overtaken by the other Dams of Neil Bywater.
Yeah, Neil Bywater was threatening to fall away from the back of the field and make it not much of a race for the reverse grid pole. However, Steph decides that the race is on indeed by spinning out there. Neil very, very slow out of the penultimate corner, but Steph can't take advantage quite yet. Neil once again going deep into the final corner as well. That's going to compromise him a little bit here. Struggling for traction, but Steph very tentative in at the rear of the order here in the Sauber Junior team car. And as a result, Neil Bywater will be able to hold on to 8th place for now, although driving like this isn't going to keep it in his hands for much longer, as he has a major swapper through turn 1, and now down towards turn 2 they go. Steph will take the outside line for 3, hope to try and get the switch back on Neil, who very obligingly goes incredibly deep into the corner. And as a result, Steph now has their nose ahead, and Neil just completely backs out of it into 4, not willing to continue that fight.
Further ahead, we're seeing a bit of battling between Tudor and Dominic, and Darius maybe wanting to join that fight. Darius there catching up to this fight for second place, who was a couple of laps ago just exclusive between the two Prema drivers, but no longer that is. Darius there in the Art Grand Prix there, coming from behind. He's had a monstrous start to this Grand Prix, as we talked about just 2 laps ago. Up right behind Tudor now, pressuring him a bit.
Tudor actually, I think Tudor must have made a mistake somewhere on this lap, because he was ahead of Dominic, of course, by about a sort of second and a half. Now he's behind him, and critically, he's missing the majority of the left-hand side of his front wing. So he's had a bit of a trip into a wall somewhere, I can only imagine. I don't know where he could have done that and only lose the one position. But he's going to be struggling with understeer, particularly through this corner right here, because it is the left-hand side of his front wing which is missing, which harms you far more in fast right-hand corners.
Yeah, now here comes Darius for 3rd place. Will he go for the overtake into turn 1? There you saw he was just taking it to the right-hand side to show himself in the mirrors, but he wasn't able to go for the move this time round. Down to turn number 2, maybe? No. And then through turn number 3 in these conditions, you really don't want to go for the move. You can maybe test it in the dries, but certainly not in the wets there. But Tudor not getting the best of exits there due to his front wing damage. And there Darius, he was for a second thinking about going around the outside, but just held back for a second and is staying back in 4th place there, even though he's now had maybe 2 opportunities to go for the move. But he's playing it clever. He knows that in these conditions you shouldn't just dive it up the inside or around the outsiders there. He was struggling a bit with grip there coming into the chicane, but was able to keep it behind without making any contact to Tudor. But looking at how much Tudor's struggling, I'm surprised if Darius won't be able to get past. But then seeing that, as we just saw, Darius having to counter steer a bit, and there again, almost losing it. It looks like they are both struggling, front wing damage or not.
Yeah, Darius, it's been interesting actually watching Darius drive this race so far because he's having loads of moments where he has to counter steer, where he's almost spinning out corner after corner. And yet every time he holds it and doesn't really lose that much time in doing so either. So I think it's all kind of under control for Darius, but if one of these moments just gets a little bit out of hand, he could well see himself in the wall, just as happened to Tudor earlier in this race. This is now a golden opportunity because Tudor will be slow in the braking zone and into turn one as well, and Darius is already alongside. He'll have the inside line. Tudor desperately trying to hang around the outside. Will offer the switchback here potentially, but yeah, not enough grip with that front wing damage, and there is the moment for Darius. I said it might happen at some point. He might just lose it, and there it is. Got a little bit too excited on the exit of turn one, wanted to solidify P3 over Tudor, and as a result almost found himself in the wall. I think he avoided the wall though, so he should be able to drive straight back up to the back of Tudor again.
Yep, he did manage to avoid the wall, but he was almost overtaken by Haspin and Sebster. They were very close to be able to go for, at least Haspin was able to almost go for the move on Darius, but now Darius having to play a bit of a catch-up game back to Tudor, but seeing as Tudor's struggling that much with his front wing damage, it doesn't look too hard, and there as well picks up himself a 3-second time penalty. So not even does he have front wing damage, but also a time penalty now, which will hurt him even more at the end of the race. But Darius just showing why his moments can be so dangerous, and Tudor there almost losing it himself, coming out of the S portion of the track. And now Darius tries to find his way round the outside through turn number 13. It won't be done before turn number 14, but that right-hander, it'll be a tricky one for Tudor. And there Darius has the position, but down the straight, will Tudor be able to find a way past? It doesn't look like it, but behind, we might be seeing some battling between Haspin and Sebster. For 5th place there, you see Sebster now down the inside into turn number 1. Same as Tudor right in front of them. We have 2 battles now to keep an eye on. Tudor not able to get the position, but that is Sebster behind, and Lasher now going for the move on Haspin. So Lasher going up into 6th, Sebster going into 5th, and Darius was able to defend his newly found 3rd place.
Yeah, Tudor was not giving that one up without a fight, that's for sure, and twice threatened to throw Darius off the road with lunges up the inside. Both times, though, he was able to avoid making contact with the ART, and Darius very sensibly just giving him the space he needed and then making his way gently up into 3rd. Now, it's 4 seconds between them and Dominic because they've been battling so much and because Tudor has been holding up the rest of this pack with his front wing damage. So we'll see what Darius can do to make an imprint on the lead of Dominic up ahead, or not exactly the lead, but the gap to Dominic up ahead. And it's going to be quite an interesting podium, actually. It's not that often we see Dominic on the podium, and it's even less often that we see Darius on the podium. So if both of them manage to make it in this race, it'll be a bit of a turn up for the books for them. However, the leader is a little bit less different to what we might usually expect, as Flash is 13.5 seconds clear at the front right now, which is absurd. That is a huge margin to the rest of the field. And you can see it as well in the fastest lap. Flash's fastest lap in this race, a 1:44.0. That's a full second faster than Tudor, who has the 2nd fastest lap.
Yeah, Tudor now, as you mentioned, with the 2nd fastest lap, is now coming into the pit. I think he's been struggling enough with that front wing and is coming in to now get it changed and strap on, most likely, a fresh set of wet tyres. I would be surprised, very surprised, if he did anything else, since the rain is still coming down quite heavily and that there is no sign of a dry line to be found. You do see that it is a bit darker in the middle where the drivers have gone on the racing line there, but it's nowhere near dry enough for slick tyres. But yeah,
Indeed.
coming out.
There tends to be some inconsistency in the game with what your eyes tell you and what is actually the case, because sometimes you'll see puddles, a lot of standing water, and the game will say, no, that's intermediate conditions, mate. So, you never really know. You can't really trust the way the dry line looks in the game. It's more about how it feels. And for these drivers, I don't think it's feeling too great at the moment because Flash, that fastest lap that I mentioned earlier, that was set quite a while ago by the German in the ART. He's not been improving on his lap times for the last 3 laps at least. So I think it's probably a combination of the track not improving much and the wet tyres really starting to get a little bit aged on some of these runners now. Of course, Flash is still well clear of the pace of the rest of the field, so they're all sort of losing time in accordance with one another. And that suggests that it might not be the end of the world for Tudor that he had to pit, even though he did, of course, have to change that front wing, because probably everyone else will have to pit in this race.
Yeah, normally you say that a driver has to pit at least once and change to the opposite tyre, since that is, of course, the rule in F2, as well as it is in F1. But today you can very much see the drivers would be able to run it all the way on the same set of wet tyres if they want to, but seeing as some of the drivers aren't really improving on their lap times, I would imagine that all the drivers would have to come in at some point not to risk a puncture, or at least to be able to still have grip in these conditions.
Yeah, Dominic now just falling further and further behind Flash, but not really losing time or not losing that much time to Darius behind. The gap has just dipped under 4 seconds for the first time in a long time between these two. But Darius is not really making any significant imprint on the German up ahead, and as a result, I think we're going to have to wait until after the pit stops and see whether Darius goes for an undercut or not to try and pull the trigger, try and do something about that 4-second margin to Dominic, because at the moment, unless the Prema driver makes a mistake, it's looking pretty nailed on for the top 3.
Yeah, and talking about improvements, I just saw Flash went purple in the second sector, so maybe his tyres aren't that much off, and he was just saving a bit of fuel and saving his tyres just in general. Let's see if he's about to cross the line now, if he improves. No, so, okay. Wow, actually he was only 0.071 down on his lap time. The tyres might not be falling off that cliff we were talking about.
Well, I think more what's happening is the track is actually drying up just a little bit. The track is slowly finding more pace right now. As I said before, the visuals wouldn't really suggest that. The rain's still lashing down and not really any sort of difference in the amount of standing water on the track. But it does seem like a fair few drivers are starting to improve on their best lap times. Flash wasn't able to do so, but he'd been nowhere near that 1:44 flat mark for the last few laps, and now suddenly he's a lot closer to beating that sort of lap time. I expect when Tudor comes across the line at the end of this lap, we might well see a big improvement from him. Whether it will be enough to sneak away the fastest lap of the race from Flash just for a moment or not, we don't know. But he is on those fresher, wet tyres, so I think he will have a big advantage right now with the track drying up and with the freshness of his tyres. It's going to be across the line. And he hasn't beaten the time, but he has got half a second closer to Flash's lap time. So there is a lot of improvement to be found right now, and the track is steadily drying up.
Yeah, certainly you must say that. You can see he's down to a 144.4, almost 144.5. So clearly improving and clearly beginning to find some pace, but still is a bit slower than Flash. And you'd imagine over time, if it continues like this, that you just lose more and more time. But he is catching Neil Bywater, and Flash still in the lead in that very clean air. You would imagine that he might be able to improve his lap time, and there he goes, a 144.0. So Flash still able to just improve and improve out in front, and that line in the middle of the track, it is looking more and more dark, so there might be something there about the track improving a bit.
Yeah, I think so, because I think we did see the tyres getting significantly worse for a few laps before the time started to get better, and I don't think they would have been necessarily saving tyres that much, as it does look like it's going to be a pretty clean two-stop race, or one-stop race, I should say, for them, as Lasher comes into the pits to sort of back up that idea now in the dams, Tudor having pitted already as well. Only those two drivers have pitted thus far, so there is still a possibility that some of these guys might still try and eke it out to the very end of the race. but Flash might well not even need to at this stage. If he comes into the pits, straps on a fresh set of wets, and is about 2 seconds a lap faster than everyone else, I mean, he's already about 2 seconds a lap faster. He'd be at least 3 seconds a lap faster if he did that. Then I think he'd very easily catch back up to the back of Dominic and Darius up ahead of him if he did come into the pits right now. And that is even if they actually managed to get ahead of him. I'm not sure quite what the pit delta is here. The Formula 2 pit stops do take a bit longer than the Formula 1 ones, but the Formula 2 cars are going more slowly as well. So the pit deltas kind of even out a little bit there. So Flash almost has that whole pit stop in his pocket at this stage.
Yeah, you must say that's 20 seconds down to Dominic. And although it is falling down, or that's actually because he pits. So I thought it was just falling a bit there because Dominic was catching, but not quite. Let's see if Dominic chooses to go in to the pits on this lap, or if he continues on. And in that case, if he does continue on, we'll be able to see how it looks with the delta. It looks like he's carrying on, and you see Flash, he's still in the pits. He just got going there, and Dominic goes past Flash now. It'll be a race between himself and Darius there. Darius and Sebster just passing him before he comes out on track into turn number 1. And you can just see Sebster and Darius right in front with about 2 seconds up to them.
Yeah, so about a 27-second delta there for the pit stop for Flash. Coming out behind Darius and Sebster, who are dueling just a little bit here. Sebster trying to get past Darius for what is now second position, but what will soon be third when Flash inevitably makes his way through, unless he has some kind of issue, some kind of problem dispatching of this traffic, which is a possibility, as Darius picks up a 3-second time penalty for running wide on the exit of turn 4 there, under heavy pressure from Sebster and crumbling just a little bit is the ART driver. And the other ART driver, narrowly behind, will close down the gap very quickly. Will want to get past sooner rather than later, though, because I'm sure that Dominic is at least contemplating about going to the end on this set of wet tyres. Otherwise, I think he would have pitted on the same lap as Flash and probably actually tried to get the undercut a little earlier. So he is entertaining the idea of trying to win this race by going to the end. And I'm glad to see him rolling the dice. It's a very brave decision from the Prema driver, but it might well pay off pretty well.
Yeah, and just looking at Darius now, you would imagine he might go into the pits on this lap if you want to go for a pit stop. His teammate on the last lap, and then himself on this lap there as he dives to the right hand side, and coming into the pits he is, and that'll promote Flash up into third place and Sebster into second. But Sebster might be put down one more place though. Back into third he'll go as Flash down the inside into turn number 1 on the straight there, getting the position made nicely on the inside. But with the switchback moves comes Sebster. He tries, and into turn number 2, will he be able to dive it round the outside? He tries, but I don't think he has the grip to do so. No, he has to slot in behind, and Flash there past Sebster. He is, and now he is trying to catch that 5.7 second gap up to Dominic.
Yeah, brave attempt there from Sebster to think about it around the outside of turn 3, but rather wisely didn't try and push it too hard there, as the two drivers with the German flags on their helmets dueled for P2, but it was Flash that came out on top, as you might expect from our championship leader. And now the gap to Dominic will get shorter and shorter over these next couple of laps, and it might only be a couple of laps, before that gap is completely down to within 1 second, maybe even within half a second, as already it's been half a second over the course of this lap since Flash got past Sebster, and it's almost a second. He's purple in Sector 2. He's half a second up on his previous best lap time of the race. These new tyres are serving Flash a treat right now, and I don't think Dominic has any hope, even if he can get to the end on these tyres.
No, you must say he's just trying his best to survive and just sailing around in these conditions, and he has Flash come from behind. It's like seeing an old sailboat compared to, what is a speedboat right behind him. There with a 1:43.4, he's trying just to catch up quite quickly It's 3.1 seconds now, and it was even more on the last lap. It's just minimizing itself so much right now. 2.8, 2.7 now. So every single corner they go through, he's just catching even more. And now 2.6. Yeah, you can just see purple in sector number 1 as well. Flash just going through, and these conditions with the tyres he's on right now are suiting him so well. And Dominic on those older tyres, it's not the best for him, and you can see it just in front there. Dominic 1.7 seconds ahead. That gap is getting smaller and smaller. Dominic on 12 laps old tyres, Flash on 1 lap old tyres. You can clearly see that the tyres have a difference in these conditions now, as it's purple in sector 2 as well for Flash now once again. So Flash about to improve on his lap time once again, a second lap in a row. Now they're going to come on to the start-finish straight. Dominic will be defending there. Flash had a big tank slapper coming out of 13, but Dominic there was struggling with grip in turn number 14, so equaling each other out. Now they're Flash improving 143.0. Will he be able to go for the move into turn number 1? No, just having to hold back for a second before now he'll be coming down the hill. He'll be coming down to turn number 2. Will he go for the move? No, not quite. He'll be staying just behind Dominic there. And now he's at a point where he can't really catch that much more. It's now that he has to think about going for the move, where and how. He's right in the gearbox. He's right where that light is shining on Dominic's car. Coming into turn number 5 now. Will both drivers make it through nicely? I think they will. None of them touching the curb on the inside. Where will Flash go for the move? There's just about 4.5 laps, 5 laps to go of this Grand Prix. Flash, I don't think he'll have to think about going for the move soon, but he needs to get past before the checkered flag. And there are only a certain amount of places he can get past. That'll be turn 1. Possibly turn 2, then if he's really audacious, it'll be in the chicane, and then it'll be going for any moves in the last 3 corners. So that's 3 overtaking spots, and he has not that many laps to do it. And round the outside now, he was trying, or maybe it was just him sliding out as he hit the curb there, coming into turn 13. Losing a bit of traction there now. Dominic wide as usual in the final corner. Flash getting better grip on the inside line. He's moving to the inside. He's faster into turn 1, but he isn't better on the brakes there. Very close to hitting the gearbox there. Going for almost a switchback move down the hill. Coming down to turn number 2. He's on the inside. But it'll turn to the outside for turn 2. But then it'll be the inside once again for turn number 3. But he's hanging it around the outside. Then it'll be the inside. And he got the position. Flash now into P1. But Dominic is fighting back now. They're coming up the hill for turn 4. Dominic is on the outside. Flash now demoted shortly to second place, but keeps it in P1 as they come into turn number 5. Beautiful move there from Flash. Just in turn number 1, simply first pressuring Dominic on the inside, then holding off on the brakes, and then sliding it to the inside on the exit, and then very nicely just hanging it round the outside for turn number 2, and then turn number 3 just nipping it on the inside. And then up the hill, defending well not to push Dominic too far off the track, but still squeezing him enough to feel that he had to loose off and just let his throttle go. And then sensible from Dominic not to try and dive it up the inside. In turn number 5, it's tricky to just go through there alone, especially then side by side. let alone in the dry, but also very much in the wet conditions. And now you can simply see the amount of pace that Flash has on those fresher wet tyres compared to Dominic. Already a 1.8 second gap, and it's only been around half a lap. And I wouldn't be surprised that once the checkered flag falls in just about 4 laps time, that we can see that gap jump to around 5, maybe even more seconds. I think that's Lasher currently causing the yellow flags in Sector 3. He would have had a spin in turn 13, or at least on the curb just before the corner or in the corner possibly. A corner that's quite tricky. We saw Flash whilst he was behind Dominic, I believe on the lap that he overtook him, that he was just struggling in that corner, almost losing the entire grip and spinning around on the curb, just in the braking zone. If you get out there, you can lose a lot of grip on the right hand side, and then the car can easily just spin you around. But it can also help you turn into the corner if you have a bit too much speed. Of course, if you lose the grip, it of course turns you into the corner. But I believe that most drivers see it as a disadvantage compared to something that will use in the race. Now quickly coming to the end of the feature race here on lap number 16 out of 19. Just have a quick look at the penalty situation. If we just move over to that, 3 drivers have penalties. The first driver to have penalties is Darius. He's in 6th place. He has 6 seconds worth of penalties. Then right behind him we have Tudor in 7th place with 3 seconds worth of penalties. So Tudor, even though he has penalties himself, since it is only a 1.5 second gap, he will jump up into 6th place come the end of the Grand Prix. Then the third and final driver to have a penalty is Lasher, currently in 9th and last place. Right behind his teammate. Lasher has 3 seconds worth of time penalties, and currently in a position where he can challenge his teammate for 8th place and the reverse grid pull. But even though he does get past, he will have to pull out a 3 second gap to remain it for the end of the Grand Prix. So Lasher currently looking like he's staying behind, although into turn number 2, looking on the inside, but still staying behind, although his teammate there, having some issues getting the throttle down there. Now through turn number 3, Lasher looking for the inside line, but isn't able to go for the move there. Almost hits the back end of his teammate there, and then going very wide on the exit of turn number 4. And then you'll have to catch back up if you want to go for the move. But no! As I talked about a couple of laps ago, turn number 5, so tricky to go through. It's so easy just to hit the inside curve and get spun round. And that is something that Lasher shown us there once and for all. Now we have just about 1 lap to go, I believe, once these drivers cross the line. And then we will see how they form out for the sprint race. Of course, currently, the drivers in the positions that they are, we're seeing quite large gaps. The field is quite widespread in these conditions. Many drivers not practicing that much for the wet conditions, some not at all. And in these conditions here, it's very easy to have a small mistake. There's Tudor, very big tank slapper, coming out of turn number 1. And almost lost it into the wall there. As I was just talking about penalties, Lasher picked himself up a one for speeding in the pit lane. One of the harsher ones, 5 seconds for him. And that will then amount to 8 seconds, including the one he had already. But talking about the drivers not training too much in these conditions, someone that might have trained more than the others is Darius there. He was first trying to go for the move on Steph Farrell, but wasn't able to go for it, and now Tudor's challenging him right behind for that 6th place. Tudor there now down the inside in turn number 11, I believe that is. Not a normal place you see people go for moves. Now for turn number 12 as well, down the inside, trying so much to find the space there. Now around the outside of turn number 13, it's very tricky for Tudor, and he isn't given much space. Darius defending harshly, but now Tudor is on the inside. He's using all the space he's got, and now on the straight, he's gotten the position. He's moved up into 6th place, but Darius, he's fighting back there down the inside. It's very close between these two, but Darius, he keeps it on the inside. Almost a bit of tire banging there as both drivers try and maximize the speed they can get through the corner by moving towards the racing line there as they appear through that turn there. Tudor almost losing it in that Prema car, just having a bit of issues on the throttle like we've seen before, but he gets the position in the end and goes up into 6th place, a position that he would have gotten either way because of Darius' time penalty, but nonetheless he takes the move on track on the final lap of the Grand Prix. And now, a proof how widespread the field is, Flash is almost crossing the line, coming through the final corner now, but let's just, whilst that's ongoing, keep an eye on the battle going on with 5th place. Of course, if they get past Steph Farrell, he'll jump past them very quickly, but nonetheless, it is a battle to look at. Darius there down the inside, touching a bit there with Tudor, but he keeps it on the track, keeps it in a straight line. He tried going up the inside, Tudor didn't give him the space, and he has to stay back in 7th place, a position he would have had either way. The drivers that has crossed the line now, we have Sebster as well in 3rd place taking that, and Haspin takes 4th. Then we'll have Steph Farrell right in front here taking 5th place through that final corner there. But look at the pull there that Darius got out of the final corner, almost getting past, but didn't quite, and he has to slot into 7th place. Then we'll have Neil Bywater taking 8th place, and Lasher, he'll come home in 9th place, 21 seconds or 22 seconds adrift from his teammate in 8th place, and he'll be even further behind 1 minute and 35 seconds from Flash in 1st place. I believe I can invite friends. A nicely thing added in this year's game, and I believe an invite has been sent your way after a very exciting feature race here. You enjoyed most of it in the lobby, and oh. Yeah, you must say, looks like we're having some audio issues just for a moment there. Very annoying. I'm trying to fix it as quickly as possible. Everything should be back to normal then. Apologies for that for just a moment. I wasn't able to hear Jacob on the other end, even though he was back. But now we can have a look at the at how it all formed out here in the feature race. Flash going from pole and winning the Grand Prix and taking the fastest lap. So he is on his way to taking a Grand Slam. I believe it will be his first Grand Slam of the season. I believe McCree had one in Baku. And then it'll be the second Grand Slam of the season, but the first one for Flash. And that'll mean that he's extending his lead in the championship even more.
And all the previous 6 races at the 3 rounds before that, he either won or DNF'd in every single one of them. So, yeah, that's it's quite the stat. He's a go big or go home kind of driver, and it's a shame we can't see him here today. It's a shame we can't see a lot of the drivers here today, as it would be nice to have a bit of a fuller grid. But Macri in particular, someone that we were absolutely expecting to be challenging Flash at the very top of the championship, and probably more like the other way around, Flash challenging him with Macri leading the way. But it hasn't really transpired in that way, and now with Macri missing last round and this round as well, it's quickly falling away as Flash is hoovering up all the available points.
Yeah, not only did he miss this round and last round, at the Austrian Grand Prix, he DNF'd from both races. So he's really losing a lot of points in the championship, really bleeding it all the way, with Flash being able to, even though he isn't winning all the Grand Prix, he has scored points since the sprint race at Zandvoort. Then he has scored points in every single race. So, just showing the consistency of being able to stay in the points. Actually, there's only one race he hasn't scored points, and that was the feature race at Zandvoort. Otherwise, he'd scored points in at least every single race. And that shows with him leading the championship.
Yeah, in the feature race at Zandvoort, I seem to remember he was thrown into the wall by someone or other, so I think that we can probably excuse him that one as well, as we now are onto the grid for the sprint race, and the drivers will be getting underway for the formation lap. I assume everyone will have gone for the same idea with the tyres, if I can remember how to use the... here we go. Yeah, everyone on the medium tyres, as we would expect. No one planning on making a pit stop in this race.
No, of course, in the sprint race, this 14-lap sprint race, the drivers do not have to make a pit stop. Unlike if we saw the dry conditions in a feature race, you do have to make a pit stop. You have to go on the second set of tyres. But in the sprint race, that is not something you need to do, and that's why we see all the drivers, or at least most of the drivers, go on to the harder compound, trying to make it all the way through the Grand Prix without a pit stop. And that's also what we're seeing today, with every single driver taking the hardest compound available. It is the medium compound, and they'll be hoping to take the compound all the way to the end of the Grand Prix.
It's interesting as well that Darius is going to be starting from the front row in this race. He looked very promising for the majority of the last race, but getting too many penalties and opting to take a pit stop when many other drivers didn't has sort of hindered his progress in that race and ended up with him managing only a 7th place finish. But now he has the opportunity to start from the front row, and alongside him is Neil Bywater, who I'd imagine that Darius fancies he can make his way past at some point on the opening lap. So Darius may well be just thinking a little bit in the back of his mind about potentially winning here. However, I'm sure Tudor is probably the driver with the best chances of that right now, starting in 3rd, only just behind the front row, and definitely the fastest of the top 5 drivers.
Yeah, he'll be able to start right behind Neil Bywater's gearbox, and I'm sure that he'll be hoping he can get past very quickly into turn number 1, as the drivers are now lining up on the grid ready for the 5 red lights.
Dams on the right, ART on the left. The lights go out very quickly, but not for the drivers, who have quite a long hold here, and in the end they do get underway. Looks like Steph actually had a pretty decent start from 4th there in the Sauber Junior team car, but now starting to fall back up in 2nd gear, and Tudor has come blasting through the middle here to try and challenge into turn 1. Neil Bywater holding on really well, braking very late into the first corner there, but getting bullied down just a little bit by Tudor and Darius on the inside as well. This turns to the outside for turn 2, where Darius will have to try and hang it around. If he wants any chance of winning this race, he can't let Tudor through, and yet he has done so. Tudor, the Romanian, up into position 1 in this race after only 3 corners. Neil Bywater falling down to to third, and now maybe make that another as he runs very wide on the exit of 4, but he holds on to third position for now. Dominic's had a flying start. Both Premers doing really well. Dominic up 3 positions to 4th, and now sending it up the inside of Neil Bywater into the chicane. But once again, the Dams driver with some solid defensive driving, but he's slow on the exit. Dominic really hindering both himself and the Dams driver right now. This is giving Tudor and Darius a great chance to escape out at the front. Haspen still 5th. Lasher up 3 positions as well. So one Dams has had a good start. Neil Bywater emphatically not having a great start. He's off the road once again, but still holding on to 3rd.
Yeah, Neil Bywater really not having the best start, falling 2 positions. And further back, another driver not having the best of starts is Flash. Flash fell down to 9th and last on that start. And he'll be able to look at his, what will quite soon be, if this continues, championship rival, Tudor in first place. Now also taking the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, of course, on the first lap. Ahead, we also have to look at, I believe that is Dominic there, down the inside, makes a bit of contact with Neil Bywater's round, and hit into the side there, loses his right-hand tyre, and a safety car has been deployed in that incident. Dominic just on the inside of him, just hitting him a bit. Neil Bywater getting turned around, and then someone, I didn't quite see who, hitting him on the right-hand side. And there you see the safety car pulling up, waiting for Tudor.
I fear it was his teammate Lasher and the Dams, because Lasher is missing a significant portion of his front wing here. So I think it may have been the 2 teammates who made contact there. Obviously, not really Lasher's fault there, as Neil Bywater was definitely spun around in the middle of the track. Not much that Lasher could do about it, I'm sure. I didn't catch the onboard from the Dams driver, but I think there's definitely a reasonable excuse that that's not necessarily bad team play that happened. Just very, very unlucky in the end. And the safety car being out means that Lasher will be able to get that front wing changed here. I wonder if we're going to see any other drivers opting to take a free pit stop. If you're Flash at the back of the order, it's a possibility that you might be able to go for. I don't know how long you can run the softs around here, so we might not want to do it quite yet. But maybe after a couple of laps behind the safety car, whoever's at the back of the train might want to try and maybe sneak on a set of soft tyres.
Especially a driver like Flash, although he is in the top 8, if he just finishes the race, actually a couple of drivers pit. Both Lasher, of course, with the front wing damage, that is expectable. And then Stefferell and Flash at the rear of the safety car train, both also come into the pits. Let's see what tyre they will be going on. Stefferell taking the soft tyre. It looks like Lasher will be taking the medium, and so will Flash as well. It looks like, yeah, Flash, of course, overtaking Lasher and going on to a set of medium tyres. So, Stefferell on the softs, Flash and Lasher on a new set of mediums.
Yeah, and of course, because we had a wet feature race, they've got a lot more in the way of fresh tyres available to them, so they can just go on to another fresh set of mediums, get them just a little bit less wear on those tyres compared to the other guys. And of course, doing a standing start does put a bit of a number on the tyres as well at the beginning of the race. So there will be about, 10% or thereabouts difference between those 2 lap-old mediums and the fresh mediums for Flash and Lasher. I do wonder, though, maybe waiting until the end of the safety car period to make, or near the end of the safety car period to make this decision. Maybe losing 1 extra position, but not having to wear your tyres out as little as it will be behind the safety car. They do have this lap here where they catch up to the back of the safety car, and you will just accumulate a little bit of wear on your tyres, whether or not you are behind the safety car. So I do wonder if it might have been a better decision to wait for a couple of laps until the end of the safety car period, maybe 1 lap before the safety car comes in, and then making the pit stop. But at the moment, they have made the call as it is. Steph will struggle, I think, with those soft tyres towards the end of the race, and it's interesting that both Flash and Lasher felt that it wasn't possible, or rather at least wasn't viable, to go onto those Redwald softs.
No, I think come the end of the Grand Prix, those soft tyres will be very, very worn, and he might risk a puncture, especially here around Hungary, where tyre wear can be quite tough sometimes, especially if you get your tyres a bit up into a higher temperature, not really looking after them too much. And especially Steph Farrell, he'll be in battling with those tyres. So it might be a bit of a gamble to go onto the soft tyres, although we didn't see them, so we don't know how many laps they're able to go. And of course, the drivers, they'll only really be doing 10 laps in this Grand Prix with the safety car. So maybe actually, if you could say they'll do 10.5 laps because of the wear that they'll acquire on the lap up to the safety car, and then of course the wear whilst they are behind the safety car. So 10.5 laps, that could be quite far on a set of medium or a set of soft tyres.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do wonder, it's not much of a rear limited circuit this, but the front tyres will be going off pretty quickly, particularly through this S section at the back end of the circuit here. A lot of sort of long corners, which never suits the front tyres, and also sort of variety of left-handers and right-handers, so both of your front tyres will be getting worn out pretty sharpish if you are taking any speed at all through those portions of the track. The safety car is going to be coming in this lap, so let's see who is going to back up who and when Tudor is going to be able to pull the trigger. Darius and Dominic behind. It's those three at the front with Haspin in fourth in the orange Campos. And now Tudor just sort of waiting, playing a bit of cat and mouse with these guys. When will it be as he warms up the tyres just a little bit in towards the final corner? And now he drops the hammer and gets a good run on Darius. Darius a little bit tardy there on the restart. Dominic trying to keep in touch with the guy in third, but almost getting a swapper on the exit. Haspin's had a poor restart as Sebster already up his inside before they get to turn one, but it looks like Haspin's running a little bit lower downforce as he will be able to hold on to the position for now. Locks the rears into turn one, though, so he's going to be struggling on the exit. The Sebster not in a position to take advantage. Steph, however, on these soft tyres is trying to go around the outside of the German, maybe trying to get the switchback now into turn two. There's not really much of a switchback that can be gained at this part of the circuit. Sebster still struggling on those mediums. Further up, Dominic and Darius are doing battle as well, and Tudor at the front picks up a 3-second time penalty. Dominic straight into the back of Darius there. Darius won't be too pleased with that. That's the second car that Dominic has made contact with, but Darius was able to hold it all together.
Yeah, and it looks like Dominic was able to avoid getting any damage in that incident, although just banging into the back isn't the thing you want. Up in front, you see Tudor, he picked himself up a 3-second time penalty, although his gap is already at 2.3 seconds, so he might be able to pull a 3-second gap and avoid falling down the order. Further back, you're seeing just a bit of battling, or at least something that could evolve into battling between Sebster, Flash, Steph, and Lasher there. At the back, there is that 4-driver train, and Flash now looking for some battling with Sebster, looking to go for the move into 5th place there in the slipstream. Sebster moving to the inside, forcing Flash round the outside, but Flash has so much speed that he tries to do it, but then isn't able to quite get it through the corner, then down the downhill straight. Before coming into the left-hander there, it's close. There was almost contact. He was forced on to that curbing on the inside. And then through turn number 4, isn't able to go for the move. Or, sorry, turn number 3 up to turn number 4 there. Oh, just touching the back end of Sebster there in turn number 4. Then for 5, Sebster going wide. Flash looking for the inside line. Isn't able to go for it for the chicane. No, decides to just stay back for a moment.
Looks like something's happened to Lasher at the very back of the field. The dam's going slowly, bringing out some yellow flags. Steph Farrell will be disappointed with the way this restart has gone. Looked to be challenging Sebster off the initial stage of the restart, but now fallen back behind Flash and not really able quite to hang with the two cars in front either, as Flash takes a big excursion off the circuit there. But Steph really isn't all over the back of them as you would expect for someone on these fresher, softer tyres compared to Sebster and Haspin up ahead. Flash, of course, has the same sort of age on his tyres, but still there is a step difference in the compound, and Steph will be very disappointed with the way this is going right now. Dominic very close behind Darius as Tudor out front sets the fastest lap of the race. Last time around, Haspen actually took it away from him, but not able to do it this time in the Campos. And Dominic is close behind Darius, and now with DRS having been enabled, next time around it should be a big opportunity for Dominic, as Darius once again locking the rears into turn 2 there. That's been a problem that he's been experiencing a couple of times thus far, and it might well come to bite him here. Further back, it's Flash all the way around the outside of Sebster in turn 2. That's a move and a half from the ART driver, who now has Haspen in his sights.
Yep, up at the front again, Dominic. As mentioned, in third place, it is Lasher again causing those yellow flags. He's having a couple of issues currently. But Dominic in third, quite close behind Darius, with Haspen behind them. And this is really beginning to form quite a big train for second place. Dominic would be wanting to get by this train sooner rather than later, so he isn't going to be caught up in the next couple of laps with drivers behind him, so he can get this move done in relative peace. Now, coming through the final couple of corners, he will have DRS on Darius. Actually, they haven't passed the detection point just yet there, but he's very close to almost passing, as they just passed it
Dominic.
there.
Oh, I was really worried that Dominic was going to send it flying up the inside there. He just needs to wait for the DRS, just be a little bit more patient. He's waited 3 laps. Surely he could wait one more corner, and he does so. But he did compromise his exit at that final corner just a little bit, so this isn't going to be as straightforward as the German would like. Darius up the inside, trying desperately to hold on to P2, what would be comfortably his best result of the season thus far, but Dominic manages it around the outside of turn 1, and into turn 2 he brakes later and still gets it slowed down, meets the apex nicely, and Darius cannot respond. Further back, the other ART Flash is having a better time in his duel with Haspen, as Sebster picks up a 3-second time penalty. Haspen with the inside for turn 4, they go side by side. Flash running off circuit there, but holding on to the position. It's a little bit questionable there from the German, but he almost managed to keep it on track and didn't pick up a penalty in doing so. And as a result, he's up into 4th, now looking to challenge his teammate for the bottom step of the podium. No one is going to be challenging Tudor anytime soon, though, unless he picks up another couple of penalties, as he is now 6.7 seconds clear at the top.
Yeah, Tudor having a very good race out in front there. At the start, he was just able to pick up the 2 positions in front of him, go into 3rd place. Then the safety car came, had a good restart, and then just able to pull out that gap that's now almost 7 seconds. So he can afford getting another time penalty before he has to worry about drivers behind. Having to worry about drivers behind was Darius for a second there, as his teammate right behind him was almost pushing him through the final corner. But it looks like there might have been some gentlemanship between those two, as he was very nice to get out of the way quickly from Flash, as Flash is now almost challenging Dominic for 2nd place. But Darius nicely almost getting pushed through the final corner and then just splitting away from the racing line. Flash going through up the inside and then up quickly to the back of Dominic in 2nd place, as Flash as well sets the fastest sector 1 of the Grand Prix. So Flash there showing the amount of pace he has currently, right behind Dominic into the chicane, doesn't go for the move. Then it'll be the S section. It will be audacious to go for the move into that part of the track, and it was like he is falling back just a tiny bit and unable to go for the move.
Yeah, it looked very gentlemanly from Darius there, but I'm sure what he's really hoping for is for Flash to go careening into the side of Dominic and take them both out, and then Flash can re-inherit 2nd position. At the very least, he's going to hope that that Flash is going to hold up Dominic by getting past him, and maybe give Darius just the slightest chance to maybe fight back, as Flash now is alongside Dominic through 13, backs out of it for 14, looking to set himself up down the DRS straight, and I'm sure he will be able to take this move, as he has a much cleaner run on the exit, and it's only a matter of time as he gets out of the wheel tracks of the Prema before he makes his way past and up into P2. He's ahead come the braking zone. Dominic trying to fight back, will attempt to switch back here and might just have an opportunity, as Flash got a little bit too deep on the brakes. He didn't really need to do that. He already had the overtake done, but he should have it completed into turn 2. Dominic brave up the outside, but it's always falling away from you there. The understeer around the outside of the track can be horrendous, and as a result, Flash is up into second. Impressive drive from him, especially after he made a bit of a meal of the first lap of this race. Further behind, Sebster Haspen still battling as well. Sebster hasn't really had the clean races he would like here today, sitting on a penalty at the moment and stuck heavily in traffic right now, but he will be feeling like he could be on a shout for a podium if he just had it all go his own way.
Yep, Tudor now in front. He is slowly beginning to lose a bit of time to Flash. Of course, Flash only needs to get that gap down to 3 seconds, although that is easier said than done. Currently, he has around 5 seconds down to that goal, but he is on a bit of fresher tyres. He did pit under the safety car at the beginning of the Grand Prix there on lap number 2, meaning that his tyres is a bit better. That was why you saw him now set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix again. So he's really showing what you can do with better tyres and with a bit of a lighter car. So you could imagine that he is now out there to put in some qualifying lap times to get that gap within 3 seconds. So he might be able to pick up that Grand Slam, his first Grand Slam of the season. Of course, a thing that every single F2 or F1 driver would hope for to get at least once in their career. And this for Flash would be even better in a weekend where some of his closest rivals aren't here.
Indeed, yeah, and it's going to be a big ask for Flash to get within 3 seconds of Tudor, but it's going to be a bit less of an ask for him to get within 6 seconds, and Tudor is on 2 extra warnings right now, over and above the 3-second time penalty he already has, according to the race director. So Tudor's got to be careful here, because if he does pick up that 6th warning and get 6 seconds worth of time penalties in his pocket, then Flash will definitely have a chance of stealing the race win away. At the moment, the gap between them really isn't coming down all that quickly, though. Tudor is fast around here. He never really got the chance to show it in the feature race because of the front wing damage he picked up in an incident all of his own making, to be fair. But we might well have not seen the level of dominance from Flash last race if Tudor had been able to keep his nose clean. Flash is setting the fastest lap of the race there with a 1:28.8. But Tudor was on a 1:29.4, so only 6 tenths between them. It's definitely not going to come down to 3 seconds unless Tudor makes some kind of major mistake.
Indeed, you must say that. You can see the gap. It is getting smaller, but it isn't coming down enough. Around 3 laps to go for the drivers on lap 12 out of 14. I believe, I'm actually unsure of how many penalties Flash are on, but we at least know that Tudor only needs 1 more penalty to pick up another 3-second time penalty, and then Flash will only have to pick through another 7.5 tenths of a second before inheriting the lead on the line. But yeah, he still, at the current time, needs to gain 3.7 seconds before inheriting the win, and I'm unsure that he'll be able to do so on just 2 laps.
Yeah, Tudor actually just set a personal best middle sector of the lap as well. It was only a little bit faster, but he is still pushing in the Prema. He has not given up on it, and he is not driving within himself in an attempt to avoid penalties, although I reckon he can probably afford to do so at this stage as Flash goes faster yet again, but only by a couple of hundredths of a second than his previous time, of course. It was still about 6 tenths of a second better than what Tudor could manage, but that's not enough for Flash at this stage unless Tudor picks up that extra time penalty. Haspen and Darius are battling over 4th right now. Haspen wants to get past Darius pretty quickly because he does have 3 seconds of penalties of his own, and if he wants any chance of retaining the position ahead of Darius in that ART, he needs to get past right now as we are onto the penultimate lap of the race.
Yeah, you can just see he's behind, trying so much to find a way past, but it's 1.5 laps to go for him now, and it's looking unlikely for him to get past and get 3 seconds. You can see, I think if he really wants to, he can get past, possibly into turn 1 or turn number 2, but I don't think that he'll be able to pick up 3 seconds. And he might have been able to maybe 5 laps ago or something like that. But at the current stage, it is just, we're too late in the Grand Prix for him to be able to do so. And I think it's the same we can say for Flash. He's within the 6 seconds, but Tudor, he only has 1 lap to go. But it is only 1 warning. But with the race he's been driving, and I'm sure that he knows it's only 1 warning. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that he will be driving as pure as possible as he can on that final lap. And he might be losing a bit of extra time on the final lap, but he knows that as long as it's not under 3 seconds to Flash, he's fine. So might lose a bit more.
2 points. Sorry, go ahead.
It's just Sebster now trying to go around the outside of Aspen in turn number 3 there. Ooh. But Flash! Both Flash picking up a penalty, and Sebster going off track, hitting his front wing on the exit of turn number 4 there. So everything's kicking off in a matter of 2 seconds. Flash there, getting his final warning, picking up 3 seconds worth of time penalties. This means that it's done. Even Tudor, he can get another time penalty. It's done. He'll still win.
Yep, for sure, and I don't think Tudor is going to get that time penalty regardless. Flash also has just had a major moment in the S section, probably out of frustration more than anything else. He can still go out of this race with his head held high as Darius picks up a 3-second time penalty, but I don't think Aspen is going to be able to get past. And here, up towards the line now, comes Tudor in the Prema. He couldn't do it in the feature race, but in the sprint race, he's managed to take the top step. Flash will come home in second. No Grand Slam for the German this time around, but he does extend his lead at the top of the championship. Dominic coming across the line in third to get a podium for the Prema team. Darius in fourth. That's shuffled down to fifth, though, as Steph Farrell takes advantage of the fact that he did not pick up any time penalties, slotting into fourth place. Darius fifth, Aspen sixth, Sebs to seventh, and Lasher coming through in eighth and last of the remaining runners. Neil Bywater was crashed into by his teammates after spinning around in the middle of the track, and as a result did not finish.
Yeah, Neil Bywater getting very unlucky there at the start of the Grand Prix. But his teammate then, just trolling around at the back, he was actually a lap off 7th place, so not just a lap behind the leader, but also a lap behind his nearest competitor. So Lasher really not having the best race. Saw him spin a couple of times and then having to come into the pits for at least one front wing change. So he'll be hoping to come back in 2 weeks' time for a better Grand Prix. But as you mentioned, here is how it all falls in the sprint race, but combined with the feature race, here we have the weekend standings. Flash clearly winning this weekend with 45 points, almost picking up the Grand Slam, just missing one position in the sprint race. Then Dominic will take 2nd place, Tudor will take 3rd, Steph Farrell will take 4th, Sebster will take 5th, Haspen in 6th, Darius 7th, and Neil Bywater will take 8th. Then Lasher at the back picking up 3 points this weekend. So all the drivers this weekend picking up at least a couple of points, but Flash quite dominantly taking 45 points and almost every single point available this weekend.
Yeah, very, very nearly managing it, but not quite. In the end, Dominic coming through with the second biggest points haul as well, with 2 podium finishes. Great result for him in the Prema car. And actually, with Sebster being a bit off the ball, he might well just be getting a little bit closer to him in the championship as well. So that might be one to watch for about P5, maybe even P4 in the championship come the end of the season.
Yeah, certainly you must say. And talking about the end of the season, it is getting nearer and nearer every single race, with only 4 rounds left to go after this. And the next round will be at Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps. And that won't be next week. That'll be in 2 weeks' time. We're having just a week off, and the drivers will have a bit of time to look back at what happened in this race, and the last couple of races come back stronger for the Belgium Grand Prix. And that's certainly also something that we will try to do. We'll be back with coverage of the Belgium Grand Prix and the rest of the season in 2 weeks' time. And until then, have a good one and goodbye.